welcome to Wednesday Night Live on Our Watch. As usual, it's good to see so many faces without masks, so thank you for coming in. Just beautiful, beautiful seeing the people that have been created in God's image, not covering up God's image. So awesome. Glad you are here. Just want to tell everybody that may be new here, this is a place where we try to give you good, credible information so that way you know how to go out. If you're a person who has Judeo-Christian values, if you have a biblical worldview, we want you to be able to get out into the culture, reclaim the public square, and know how to vote. So this is an important thing for us to get together, and it doesn't matter if you're a parent, a grandparent, just a member of the community. We want to know how to secure the rights of parents and grandparents, and we want to make sure that we get out there and do what God's called us to do, which is two things: be the salt of the earth, the light of the world. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. If you haven't done so already, please just want to remind you to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter and Parler, and my handle is @RealPastorTim, so love to have you follow me on that. And then just a couple of announcements. How many of you have heard about the Freedom Rally that's coming up at Hell's Kitchen this Saturday? Yes. To me, it's just such a cool thing that I've been invited to speak at that. I mean, every pastor in the world should want to speak at a place called Hell's Kitchen, so I'm so entirely excited. My son and I get to ride our Harleys up there, and it's just going to be a good time. So if you can make it out 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, it will be a good time. We will have special guest speakers. Senator Melendez is going to be out there speaking. Of course, our attorneys, Bob Tyler, Netta Higuera from Advocates for Faith and Freedom. You'll have that law firm will be out there. Mike Netter with Recall Gavin Newsom 2020. He'll be out there. So really a great time. Last time they did an event out there, Frank Opp, the owner there, said they had about 8,000 bikes come up. So this should be a great event. Should send a great message up north, and I hope many people can come out for that. And then, of course, a lot of people ask how can they give towards Our Watch to help do all the things that we're doing, including the Wednesday nights. You can do that online, ourwatchnow.com, or Desiree has a table outside. You can talk to her about that if you feel led to do that by the Lord. Entirely up to you. All right. All that out of the way, let's talk about our guest, Maj Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
The gubernatorial candidate for 2022, unless we're successful in recalling Gavin Newsom, then who knows? Maybe sooner.
Absolutely.
Just a couple of things. Maj Williams is a Pasadena resident running for the governor of California 2022. He's a strong advocate for empowerment, school choice, and solutions for homelessness. He's for reducing our gas taxes, low property taxes, and he's against mandatory vaccines. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome. So I want to go over some of your positions on things tonight, but before we do that, I want to be able to give everybody an opportunity just to get to know you.
For sure.
You know, there's all the stuff on social media, which is awesome. But it's cool for them to have a time like this where they can just get to hear you from the heart and what's going on in your life. And so why don't you tell us a little something about yourself?
Sure. So first off, hello everyone. So sorry for my tardiness. I kind of pride myself on being on time. Last night when I Googled the address, it said 1 hour and 10 minutes, but I forgot it was at nighttime when I Googled the address. So it was a little different during this time when I was leaving my office. But a little bit about myself. Originally, I'm a Texan. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, so the Longhorn State. But I will live and die being in California now moving forward in life. I've been here 20 years. The story goes is that I came out here to visit 20 years ago. On the third day, I met a girl. It always starts with a girl. And 20 years later, still with my wife and 3 amazing kids. I started out my career in the nonprofit sector. working with in the mental health facilities, working in group home facilities. So that gave me the affinity there to add value to people's lives, to be a public servant. My mother was a public servant. She used to feed every person in the neighborhood and community. And I remember vividly when I was probably like in the 7th grade. You know, when you're a kid, you're kind of like selfish. Like, why is she giving away our food, right? And I was just kind of ungrateful. But when you have parents and someone who instills those things in you subconsciously, it seeps in your DNA. And I'm so thankful that I was raised by a woman who was so strong and so giving. And so subconsciously, I just became one of these people that had an affinity to add value to other people's lives. And mind you, it's not something that's like, may not be like life-changing, right? But small, significant things, right? It could be like a smile. It can be like just a gesture, speaking to someone. It could change the dynamics of someone's day. And so when you have that type of, upbringing, it kind of makes you have the affinity for that folks. So moving forward, I wanted to be a pastor. That didn't work out.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Right? I can't compete, right? I can't compete. So that didn't happen because I fell in love with sports. I'm a very competitive person. I played basketball and football. I also got into music and entertainment. And then also just having the background of adding value, I created a nonprofit. My nonprofit is called Major Kicks for Kids. This particular nonprofit gives away over 1,000 pair of shoes every single year to low-income and academically excelling youth. And one of the main reasons why we do it is because we understand that when you present something to the youth from an empowerment place, I remember how I felt when I got a new haircut or a new pair of shoes. I was excited. But for us as the adults, me and my team, we know that's a gateway for communication and conversation, right? So now we get a chance to have dialogue and say, so what are your aspirations? What do you want to do with yourself? So as the adults and being team-oriented, we can help you facilitate or be a resource or ally to help you get to that next level. And one of the main reasons I wanted to add value, and I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the main reasons I wanted to do this is because I am a late bloomer in life. I wish I had someone in my life early on to like 10, 20 years ago to be an ally and a resource that I've become for so many young people across California, just across the country, because we're not just isolated to California. Fast forward 5 years ago, my background is in marketing. I went to 3 different schools. I went to Trinity Valley Community College. I went to Louisiana Tech University, and then I ended my collegiate playing career at Eastfield College in Mesquite. So it's in marketing and business is what I took up. But 5 years ago, a good friend of mine that I've been knowing for 9 years, he has this great idea. He's successful in business. Our kids play together, birthday parties. He comes to me and he says, Major. Y'all want to know what he said? He says, I'm running for lieutenant governor of California. And I'm like, what? You doing, wait, why? Like, why would you subject yourself to all this criticism and all this, like, why? Like, you live a good life, man. Why would you do this to yourself? And he was just like, all I want to know is if I do it, that you're going to have my back, right? This is my brother. We've been knowing each other 9 years, 12 years now, but that was 9 years. But it was 4 years since he ran, 3 years. And what happened was it was a magical moment. I was a lifelong Democrat, right? Just by default. I was never, I'm guilty, right? I'm guilty. I was never into politics. It's just by default. My grandmother, my mother, everyone, we never really was into politics, never understood policy and how detrimental some of these policies were to our communities. So once I had this conversation with my good friend, he pointed out the policies, and he said, Major, you already live a very conservative life. Your ideals and the things that you've done in your life, you live by these principles already. And so once he was able to identify that, I was just like, I guess I am Republican, right? And so fast forward, I registered as a Republican over 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Thank you. I took the red pill. And we worked on this campaign. We started late. We had 4 months to go, and we got over 1 million votes. And so we came in the top 3. We didn't quite get there, but what it did do, it allowed me to travel all across California and meet great people like yourself, meet great people like you, all over California, and hear the stories of the frustrations that everyone was having in certain industries, in their communities. And so having the affinity to want to be a problem solver and so-called solutionist, I felt compelled at some capacity, at some point, to put myself in a position to be able to help as many people as I possibly could. And the way that I felt like I could do that at that particular time is to run for mayor of Pasadena. And the beautiful thing of why I did that is because I want to break the barrier and the standards of what people think political candidates or look like and what the qualifications are. Because what I represent the person who doesn't have 12 master's degrees, who hasn't been in politics 30 years. We need a plumber to be the mayor of Pasadena. We need an electrician to be the school board superintendent. You know why? The reason why is because these type of individuals look at so-called complex issues way different than a person that's methodical and that's been a part of a culture of solving problems or not solving problems for decades, right? And so I lost my race. Long story short, I'm very competitive. I took it really hard, but then the pandemic hit, so I was able to kind of hide in my house a little bit, right? Licking my wounds. But thank God I have an amazing wife and I have 3 amazing sons that build me up every single day. And they was like, Daddy, get up. Let's go do push-ups. Daddy, let's get up. Let's do some art. Daddy, get up. You're still a winner, right? And so how can I not come out of that in full splendor? So what I decided to do, and I wrap up, so I know you got some questions for me. But what I decided to do, I created the new California Governor Committee because I've seen the current status of the state. I've heard the frustrations of everyone. And so the new California Governor Committee, I'm the president of it. So for 3 months, we were vetting and looking for candidates for governor of California. We were looking, interviewing, talking to all these different people in these small groups, trying to get a champion to represent us that had the same kind of ideology and backbone that we all have. Who was going to be that candidate? So at the end of the day, they all turned the finger back onto me. So to wrap that up, here I am. My name is Maj Williams. I'm running for governor of California, and we will win together.
I love what you're saying about the different types of candidates that are needed.
Yes.
It's so important. We have a couple of candidates here tonight running for local offices. The city of Marietta City Council, Lori Stone, is here.
Okay.
You guys should be clapping at that. And of course, Jessica Alexander's here. She's a former Marine, and she's running in the city of Temecula.
Where's she at?
Where are they at?
Little hands.
Hey,
how you doing?
Yeah.
There you go.
And right over here. Yeah. Right
Congratulations.
Over there. Yeah.
We're pulling for you.
You know, the thing that I love, and I continue to kind of re-bring this up, is a friend of mine, Don Dix, said
I love Don.
I do too. And Don says it's time for political entrepreneurialism.
Hey, man.
And it's so true. We need to find new ways, creative ways of doing things. And you were on a friend of mine, you were on his show last week, Pastor Rob McCoy.
Yes.
And you said something, and I wrote it down because I thought, man, that is so, it just lines up with exactly with what I'm talking about. And you said this. You said, humanity itself is ready for a new era of leadership, and I offer a new brand of leadership.
Yes.
And I love that because I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's time that we get a different type of leader in these offices.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
You know, I continually throw out to my church who meets here on Sunday mornings, I let them know, like, we need you to run for school board. We
Right.
need you to run for the city council. We need different people on there. We need people that open this up
Right.
and let this guide their thought process and their decision making.
Amen.
And it can't be somebody who says they do that. It has to be somebody who actually does that.
Right.
And I'm going to get into some of that with you and some of the things you've done. But before we get into that, just one more thing for everybody to hear from you. In sports kind of got you into something maybe everybody's heard of, FCA.
Yes.
Yeah, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You want to talk about that? And,
Sure.
And maybe tell everybody something about your faith.
Sure. So I am a Christian, of course. We had this amazing experience through sports. I have a mentor by the name of Roderick Howard. One summer, he gathered up a bunch of kids in the projects, and he said, I'm going to take you guys on a basketball camp. I was able to go with 3 of my other friends, so it's 4 of us in total. And so we were leaving South Dallas, Texas for the first time ever, and we're going to Denver, Colorado. So we were excited. We got consent from my parents. My mom was like, please take them, right? She was ready for me to go. And so we get to Denver, Colorado. We get off a bus. We see all the buses lining up, and all these kids are getting off the bus. We're like, we're about to have a great time. We're about to like just have so much fun. Uniquely, as soon as we got off the bus, they split us up. My heart was pounding because now I'm in a room with a white guy with red hair, a Latino kid, and an Asian kid. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a good trip, right? So fast forward, right? I've never left my environment, right? And so it was like a culture shock to me, just like thrust upon me, right? Fast forward, it was the most amazing experience that I ever had in my life as a kid. By connecting with these gentlemen that I'm still friends with to this day. You know, so Fellowship of Christian Athletes changed the trajectory of my life. It made me want to go off to college. It made me have more ambition. It just opened up my spirit and soul and just gave me vision beyond my hood and my community. So it gave me different aspirations. So I went 2 years in a row. And anyone that, if it's even still going on in Denver, Colorado, wherever it is, I always encourage young people to look it up and to get active and also to push yourself out of your comfort zone because that's really what it was about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's fast forward now to some current events. Everybody's very well familiar that we've got the BLM protests that are going on, and you made your way to one of them.
Yes.
At least.
Yes.
And you ended up having just a few people there following you. How many? Tell us about that. It started off small, which is not small by any means, but it started off small and it ended up pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, so we went out there with the intent to make sure that we promoted peaceful protest. That was the true trajectory. We felt like there was an opportunity for leadership to be inserted in those spaces. And so we went out there, we met with a lot of different leaders. We met with the police department, we met with local elected officials, and then we also went to all the communities that were affected, that was doing the rioting, and say, hey, there's a better way to do it, right? And so during that process, we decided we were gonna have our own rally. And so walking up to this rally, there's like 500 people there. And so from us, guys from Los Angeles, that's like a big deal to gather people that many from a place that you're not from. So we began our peaceful protest, and probably 2.5, 3 miles after, 2 or 3, 4 miles into it, we look behind us, and there's 30,000 people behind us. 30,000 people, and the reason how it occurred, we've been there 4 days, so we were speaking at other rallies. And so whatever we were doing at that particular point made an impression on a lot of people, and everyone just kept telling everyone, so they had like 4 or 5 different rallies going on our day, and all the rallies joined our rally and marched with us, and we went over to the place where the people just got hit with the 18-wheeler. And so we went over there to console them, let them know that they're not alone, and make sure that they were safe, and also to go over there and protect that environment. So for the first time, no criminal record, I got maced and pepper sprayed. It was the most grueling experience ever, right? And we were alerted that we were to be very careful because people were targeting us, right? So a woman comes up to me right when I'm pepper sprayed, not pepper sprayed, tear gassed. I was tear gassed. And she wanted to spray my face with water, but God helped me. He helped me at that particular moment. I said, no, thank you. Come to find out, this young lady was spraying poison in people's face. So mind you, it's smoky and cloudy. I'm a target. She caught me by myself running up a hill off the freeway, comes out of nowhere, and and I said, no. I had the state of mind to decline her and got up to the fence and just kind of waited it out, so to speak. But then we found out that's what was happening. They were implanted into our thing to cause disruption. So thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. We were there for a peaceful protest.
Yeah, well, and that's an important part of our government is our ability to assemble together and peacefully protest when we have a grievance. At any point when you were part of that, were you scared?
From the projects, man. I've been through worse.
Yeah.
I've been through worse. But I always share this statement. I'm God-led. I can't describe it any other way. You know, I kiss my wife on the head before I leave. I hug my kids, and they expect me to come home. I expect to go home every single day. And so when I'm in those situations, in that predicament, I don't get wavered easily.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know what you bring
But
up.
I did duck when they started shooting those tear gases.
Oh, you're not dumb. Yeah. Here's the thing. So Second Corinthians chapter 12. I love that you said you're God-led. And I just want to encourage everybody here tonight with the Word of God. And this is what it says. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults, the hardships, the persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Amen. I want to encourage you guys as we continue on in our culture. We're being the salt, the light that God's called us to be. We need to take a stand for righteousness. We need to take a stand for having peaceful protests.
Right.
We need to be willing to have people single us out and want to come after us. And there's a lot of people who in their Christianity, their Judeo-Christian values in our culture, they want to fly that banner of Christianity, and yet they actually don't want to get up off the couch and go be Christians because I don't know what people are going to say about me or what they're going to do.
Right.
And there's a lot of fear that Christians can have. And I just want to tell you, don't be afraid of anything.
Right.
Don't be afraid of anything. And you may say, well, I'm too weak to accomplish that, or I don't have the skills to accomplish that, or you may have all sorts of doubt. I can tell you those doubts are from the enemy, because the fact is, when we realize we don't have all those things, when we realize how weak we are, then God's Spirit can come through us, and that's when the power of Christ is at work in us. And we can wake up in the morning, kiss our wife, kiss your husband goodbye, and plan on coming back that night.
Absolutely, 100%. And another thing I would like to say is that understand that we can fight in a variety of ways. You don't have to get intimidated because you see someone fight a particular way and don't think that you can fight in that way. Everyone has a God-given gift and ability, and even during this fight that we're fighting right now, just find your niche, but contribute and step up whatever way you possibly can. And one of the things that I did is like I'm activating as many people as I possibly can to contribute to this campaign however you can. Like, I don't care if you shared it with 2 friends and you only have 7 on your Facebook. Share it with them and tell them about what we're doing, because if I have 1 million people with 7 friends who have 7 friends, it all adds up. And that's what's important. And as a Republican, they're counting on us not to do the work. They're counting on us not to do the work. They're counting on me not being able to be a verifiable candidate or qualified because you guys are not going to acknowledge me and get behind me strong enough to make me an impact. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I feel like we're going to be compelling together, going through this together, being a resource, being an ally, being blessed to be able to come here today and speak to everyone and sit with Pastor Thompson. And this was gonna make us great. This right here. So you can fight in multiple ways.
Amen. So I'd like to get into some of the issues now. It's that way everybody can hear kind of your position on some of these. And of course, if you want to get more detailed information, you can go to your website, which is
majorforgovernor.com.
All right. I'm going to have you repeat that several times throughout the night.
Absolutely.
But make sure you guys go there, get more information, and see how you can, if you feel led to help support what he's doing. I mean, this is, it's a time for us to really start considering what I mean, I love this, is you are going full speed ahead.
100%.
And it's 2 years away.
Yeah.
And
that's how important this is.
Yeah, and one of two things is happening. Either the recall is going to happen, and somebody's going to have to step up and take that role.
Yeah.
And so that's why God has you pushing so hard right now.
Yes.
Or it's going to be just a very, very long road over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Either way, it sounds like you've got the tenacity and the drive, but go online, check it out. Let's talk about some of these things. I want to talk about the budget tonight.
Sure.
We just had an article come out, and I want to give you guys a quote from this article. That's just a little clip of it there, but the quote says this: the 2020 and 2021 budget, this is now for California, spends far more, at least $20 billion more than projected revenues, even including billions of dollars from the state's emergency reserve. So we are setting ourselves up for failure here in California
sure.
under Gavin Newsom's direction. Proverbs 21:5 says, "Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty." Okay, we're seeing the things that are coming out of Sacramento right now, and what we're anticipating, federal bailouts. These are hasty shortcuts.
Right.
You know, what we need to have is good planning and people that are willing to work hard, just like the Bible says. So let's talk on your end. You know, the budget's a problem for sure.
sure.
And how do you see it, and what would be some of the things you would do to resolve what's going on?
So some of the things that we spoke about here recently is just understanding that California doesn't have a revenue problem; they have a spending problem, right? So we can all agree when it comes to that. Another way is to identify through an audit, which is what I would do, to identify where the waste is, right? And also we have to magnify where that waste is, because if you guys don't know, we don't know what to fight for. Right now we don't know where to fight for because we don't know where the money is going. And so we need leadership and someone in there willing to shine a light on it and really produce transparency. I know that we hear transparency a lot and hear a lot of people talk about it, but I'm the guy who just ran a race who had a guy build an app to show the city of Pasadena's budget live on the city website. So imagine how frustrated and peed off some people were about that.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
So my success that I had running in my last race, I would copy and paste that same mentality and leadership on a statewide level because it's possible. And so even like with our small businesses dealing with the pandemics and things that are going on right now, we're creating a new business model in the sense that we're giving out loans. In this particular instance, I wouldn't give out loans. I will pull money from these failed projects that we have and give out stimulus to our small business communities. Because if you're handing out loans, what happens with those loans? You have to pay those loans back. Do we agree? Right? And so if you're playing catch up on your mortgage or your rent 6 months, and then they're adding onto your rent, they're making a monopoly that's happening and no one is really caring. And Gavin Newsom doesn't care because he hasn't physically built a business with his hands ever. So he can't relate. He's out of touch, and the people that are surrounded around him are out of touch. I'm a small business owner. I'm an entrepreneur for 20 years. I know the gut and grit that it takes to be up and down every single month trying to figure it out. But when someone cuts the legs from up under you and takes the wind out of your sail, what are you to do? And so who is there to fight for you? And so understanding the budget, understanding that we can pull from different resources because we have a lot of resources. California is one of the fifth largest. It's larger than some small cities or countries or continents, right?
Fifth largest economy in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we are an attractive state. So we're going to leverage that to bring new opportunity and new revenue into our state so it can benefit the people, because truly leadership has to start looking to empower its people.
Yeah. Well, you look at the climate of where we're at right now in California, and what is happening is an attack, primarily I would say an attack on the church, but as we look at the attack on the church, there's also an attack on small business. And
Right.
this is really what this is doing, is pulling from the people the ability to carry out life the way God intended.
Right.
Socialism is not biblical at all. I can give you a whole message on that, but it's not biblical. Socialism doesn't work. It's not God's plan. Capitalism is the closest to what God desires. Why? Because it says, here's an opportunity.
Amen.
Will you work hard? Will you seize the opportunity? Or are you going to be the lazy person that sits on the couch?
Will you make good decisions?
You make good decisions. Proverbs 13:4 says, lazy people want much but get little, but those who work hard will prosper. And this is the promise of God, and yet what we're seeing is an attack on the church, an attack on small businesses to take the wind out of the sails of some people that have worked their whole life
Right.
to try to make this small business work. The mom and pop printing shops and taco stands and whatever it is, startup computer companies, all
Right.
sorts of businesses that are out there, and yet they're really attacking it to the point where, look what's happening right now. It's the big corporations that are able to sustain through this time. So it's truly an attack on small business. That's one of the things I love about you, Major, is you are for the small business.
Yes.
You have a whole plan for it. In fact, on your economic plan, you say you're going to plan on reaching out to small business organizations. You want to aggressively encourage new businesses. You want to focus on real projects and have direct policy towards those small businesses. So tell us about some of those policies. And you've already mentioned one about the stimulus. Let's hear some other things you want to do.
And so some of the things is just about being supportive from a state and government perspective. So the state in itself has a large platform of contacts, right? I think the state during this particular time, one of the policies, or just not really a policy, the action that we would take is promoting business, right? So if we have this huge database, we're able to reach anyone, any voter. We need to start learning how to promote and market our small businesses in order to help them become successful or catch up from this crisis that we're all dealing with. And so those are two of the main things that I really, component that could change everything, the marketing aspect of it, and giving them additional tools, whether it be online tools. You have certain brick and mortar shops that haven't really propelled themselves to have the best website. So we're going to create a model where they can go and these creators will create their websites for them for free. We're going to copy and paste other people's success and give it to our mom and pop shops so they can be a part of that gravy train, so to speak. And so, and I think if you have leadership that's talking in this way, it's going to open up so many other opportunities and ideals, because oftentimes you're not going to get anyone in leadership that's talking to you about saving your business or advancing your business or pushing you to the next level. And so among those 2 or 3 policies, I think it'd be hugely beneficial over the next 4 years if we're able to implement something like that.
Yeah, I'm all for that. You know, we got to do something to stimulate that desire for capitalism.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's a shame to see the America that I grew up in, and I don't have grandkids yet. I'm really excited about that day. I always tell them, the whole congregation knows, I say there's only one thing in life that I don't have that I've always wanted, and that's grandkids.
Are you going to be granddad or pop-pop?
I'm going to be grandpa.
Okay, there you go.
Grandpa.
All right.
Unless the other guy wants to be called grandpa, then I'm Grandpa Timmy. So either way, there's a grandpa in there.
There you go.
And it's the only thing I don't have. But the thing is, I want, my friend Senator Mike Morrell, he's talking about that verse in the Bible. It says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children.
Yes.
And he says, look, that's not just about money. That's about leaving an America for them that we had, the way of life.
That's true. You're right. I agree.
It's that way of life where anybody, no matter the color of their skin, the size of their bank account, it doesn't matter what religion they're a part of. If they're in this country and they want to succeed, then they can succeed, because that's what happens when men try hard and women try hard, is you can really accomplish much in this nation. And so I want to be able to leave that for my grandkids.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so I love the idea of promoting small business. Let's talk about public safety, because obviously I want a safe America, a safe California as well. I'm very much pro law enforcement.
Right.
Yes. And it sounds to me like you are too.
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Talk about the annual Meet Your Cop event.
The annual Meet Your Cop event is something that I want to produce to foster a new relationship and mentality towards the community, towards the police officers, and the police officers towards the community. I'm also working on an initiative to start grooming young men and women to start, what is the best word? I want to start grooming them to become officers in their own communities, right? Because we've done certain studies or looked at certain analytics that shows that when people are familiar with the officers or the people of authority in their communities, that actually helps way more than having people that are strangers or people that they don't know, because they're not really invested. You know, I know Ray Ray is crazy, right? So if I see Ray Ray and I grew up with him, I'm not going to have the same approach of another person that may be thinking that he's mental or afraid and taking that kind of precaution and kind of going overboard with my authority, right? And so I think that's something that comes from leadership that we can actually offer up during my administration. but also the Meet the Cop event is going to be an actual physical event where people can come together and see police officers in regular plain clothes, play some hoops, play some dominoes, eat some good food, and just really get a feel for each other, because if you're familiar with someone, at least at minimum, in passing, your posture changes, the energy inside you changes. If you don't know anyone and you have all this stigma from bad media and the mass media painting our police officers as if they're all killers and they're out to get us and they're hunting black people, like that's not the case, right? And so we have to, as leaders, create a different portal of messaging for them, and I think it's a huge responsibility of a leader to do that. And of course, Gavin Newsom and so many others have dropped the ball in that area.
Absolutely. Yeah, pushing a false narrative, really. Yeah. So you want to build that bridge, a better bridge from the law enforcement to the community. Another way you want to do that, and I think this is something that I haven't seen done well in a long time, but that is the whole idea of neighborhood watch organizations. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, Neighborhood Watch has been successful in certain areas. And so anytime anything is successful, you have an opportunity to pull from it and copy and paste it in other areas. It's very simple. I've seen it be successful in other areas. And so now I want to make sure that we want to grow that mentality and grow that service and that program in other areas. And I think, it's a great segue to blend the community, to give them accountability and make them feel more about, take more accountability and more pride in your community. And so I want to copy and paste that ideology.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing if we can find a way to really train up the community to be a part of that, being the eyes, looking out for one another, not being a bunch of Karens, but, no offense to anybody named Karen, but you all know what I'm talking about, But the thing is, we want people to value our community, and when we see something wrong, be willing to say something and not feel like we're being judged for saying it, because we should be able to look out for one another, and I think that's vitally important.
And honestly, another deterrent is if people, statistically, if people know it exists, that in itself statistically brings down crime in any community that we've learned from this study. So even the fact that they know it exists, it brings down crime. So we want to put as many deterrents as possible to make sure that individuals feel safe in their homes, make sure that they feel safe in their communities, because ultimately that's so important to all of us. Can I get amen?
Yeah.
That's important to all of us.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's talk about, I know something that's near and dear to the hearts of many people that are here tonight and those that are watching online, and that is SB 276 and 277.
Yeah.
Let me just turn it right over to you.
Yeah.
Tell the folks what it is in case they don't know.
So in layman's terms, it's basically pushing out a lot of California families because of mandatory vaccinations. Now they're making it tougher, or eliminating the fact that a doctor can give you an exemption, your child an exemption to be able to go to school and participate in regular activities. One of the most dangerous things about this bill is that whenever they create certain bills, it's like a seed. They figure out what they can get away with, and next thing it'll be something else. And so we have to start stepping up and standing up to these bills right now and identifying what they are, and just make sure that we are messaging correctly so other people can understand what these bills are. And so the simplistic reason why I'm running for governor of California stems from me not vaccinating my kids, and also, And just the reason, for my personal reasons, it can be my own personal reasons. It's not something I have to share with someone in order for my kids to get an education here in California, right?
Right.
And so I'm a strong advocate to repeal that. My first 100 days as the next governor of California, this will be on my desk and be a part of my task force.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
It's funny, the people on the left, they coined a phrase that they love to use so frequently, and that is "my body, my choice."
Oh gosh.
And and that then you flip the coin, and it's like, okay, well, so what are you going to pump into my body?
Right.
Well, I thought it was my body, my choice.
Right.
So I'm extremely against mandated vaccines.
Right.
Just from a patriotic standpoint, just knowing that men and women have fought and died for the freedoms that we have in this nation. And then for them to force us to put something in our body, it's just unconstitutional,
Right.
it's unpatriotic, it's un-American.
Well, it just goes to show the kind of leadership that we're dealing with right now. Anytime you have leadership that has a mentality of one size fit all, we are in grave danger, California, if that's the case. Right?
Right.
One size does not fit all, right? We don't
Right.
wear the same shoe. We don't have the same temperament.
Right.
I have to deal with my 3 sons very differently. My 4-year-old is a 4-nager, right? He's totally different than my 9-year-old. He runs the house, right? And so that applies universally. You know, it's not a one-size-fit-all solution.
Right.
And the leadership that we have right now, unfortunately, is dragging us down that rabbit hole that I'm aggressively fighting to get us out of.
Yeah. There's always one issue for me. When I'm looking at who I'm going to vote for, there's one issue that's a make it or break it thing for me. And I know everything really at that point I need to know about if the answer is no. So and I'll just go ahead and just throw it out there.
Is there a drum roll?
Yeah. Are you pro-life?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
100%.
There we go.
That's
All right. Once a person says no to that,
Yeah.
you know, to me it's like if you are okay with killing a child,
Right. And
How
I'm,
can
gl-
I
I'm-
tr-
and I'm glad you frame it
how
that
can
way.
I trust you with my money,
Yeah.
with my streets? I
Yeah.
can't trust you with anything.
Yeah, did everyone see when they passed the bill, I believe in New York, for abortions, and everyone cheered and clapped, right? I mean, for me, it's a pure evil mentality and perspective when it comes to that. There was a young lady that was going back. Well, she wasn't going back and forth with me. She said something. I said something back. I don't go back and forth on Instagram, right? But she said something very unique. She said she's trying to hijack the medical freedom, or the fight that we have against vaccinations, and add it to my body, my choice. And then she said they're basically the same. They're the same thing in regards to my body, my choice. I said, well, okay, let's lay that out. So you're saying, as a parent concerned about your kids, some of these parents understand how vax, and their kids have paid with their lives for, right?
Right.
So you're saying that us fighting for this is similar to you making a choice to murder your child? It's not the same. And this is the ideology that we're dealing with from the left and from so many different groups. That's ridiculous, and we have to fight against it, and I'm fighting against it every single day, and I will continue to.
Amen.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that maybe you know, maybe you don't, but back in the 80s, we actually, in this nation, passed a blanket immunity for the vaccine companies. So the idea is, no matter what happens, your child can die.
They're not liable.
Whatever. Yeah, you can't sue them. They've got blanket immunity.
Yeah.
That's a problem. We actually, in fact, for those of you that heard my announcement last week about Bobby Kennedy Jr., I gave you the wrong information, so my apologies. So it's actually going to be August 28th, or 26th. So it is a Wednesday night. We're not changing anything. It's next month, though, August 26th. And he's going to talk about that, the things that are going on with the vaccines, and you're not going to want to miss that night.
Right. And I look forward to connecting with him also.
Yeah, he's got a lot. Well, he's a Kennedy. They got a lot of inside information.
Tell him I've been in his DM a couple times. So
okay.
tell him to answer
I'll
my
let
DMs.
him know.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to ask you about universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
Understand, I mean, you're pro-life. You're you're at least, are you anti-vaccine or anti-mandatory vaccine?
Anti-mandatory vaccines.
Okay. So that being said, I mean, we've got this idea of universal health care, and behind the idea of universal health care is Planned Parenthood with the whole abortion thing. We've got the transgender therapies that are happening on school campuses. I don't know if you know this, but right now, your sons, your daughters on many campuses in California can go into what they call a wellness center and receive, because of universal health care, they can receive, without your knowledge or your consent, they can receive transgender therapy. Your daughters, without your knowledge or consent, can go leave campus, get an abortion, and come back to campus, and you have no clue that it even happened.
Right.
So, and then of course the mandatory vaccines are all behind the universal health care. So, what's your thought on that?
I mean, for me, we've been looking at that for like the last 2 months. I think it's a very complex situation because they do cloak it up under that umbrella and put so much into it. And none of us, with our hard-earned money, want to pay for anybody's abortion or pay for these, for gender and all these other things that they're putting under these umbrellas. And so that's something I haven't, and I've openly not supported universal health care. But in saying that, from a leadership perspective, I have to caution myself because anytime I counsel something out, it's smart to have a plan on what you're going to replace it with. Because at the end of the day, we have to understand that it is about health care. Abortion is not health care, and it's not wellness. It's just murder. That's a whole separate entity, right?
Right.
And so what we do create has to be something that's going to be embody true health services, and that's what I'm going to work on. That's what I'm going to propose, and collectively together, because I'm a very collaborative person. All successes I've had in the industry has come from collaborations, and so my governing style would be no different.
All right. We've only got a little bit of time left, so I still have three more things.
Okay.
Police reform.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's face it, there's no police department in the world that's perfect.
Absolutely.
So we can always, and I know you talk to any law enforcement leader, they're going to tell you, hey, we're always looking to reform things, make things better.
Right.
So where are you at on that idea? I mean, obviously you don't want to defund the police.
Right. I am totally against defunding the police department. Like I said earlier, I support the police department 100%. I've participated in the academies. I've been able to go and understand the nuances of their job. And, I don't know if anyone else has participated in some of the simulations that they have in regards to their training. I got killed 3 times. I'm going to be honest with you. It is so intense and it's so fast-paced, and it gives you a different admiration and respect for what they are truly dealing with on the ground in real life. And so for the average person who's judging and ostracizing and not putting yourself in that position to understand and educate yourself on how intense that job is, you're doing yourself a disservice. But on the flip side of it, as you said, there is room for reform, and I will represent that. I will champion for that. I'm really good friends with the chief of police of L.A. and also in Pasadena, and we talk about this often. We're talking about protecting and the safety of our officers. We're talking about different parameters. Every 6 months, let's do some what is it called? Psychological evaluations, right? Because they're humans, right? So we have to acknowledge that about our officers also. Being on the job and being burnt out, you can do that in any job. I can be flipping burgers and get burnt out and just throw grease all over the kitchen one day, right? So that can happen with these not so-called, but these professionals that are empowered to protect us. And so I support the police department 100%. I stand with them in solidarity.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about another bill that in my mind is just yet again another attack on small business or another attack on the entrepreneurial spirit of Californians and the idea of capitalism, and that is the bill AB 5.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know what it is, let's kind of throw this whole gig bill out there and
sure. AB 5 is basically the government telling you what you are concerned with. So they're basically saying that you care about not being a gig worker or entrepreneur. They're basically putting a stranglehold on your flexibility. People become entrepreneurs and take on gigs and pick up certain trades because that's their value and that's what makes them valuable. But once you put the strain on businesses and change the way that they have to engage and work with you, there's going to be a huge statistic on how they decide not to move forward. Hence, they're trying to make them, they have to go and get workers' comp now because of this. They have to treat you like a staff now, which changes your relationship with them. So they create these models based upon what they need from you, not that they need it 24/7. And so it changes the dynamics. Someone may work for a company 20 hours in a whole year, but they're making them list them as employees, and they have to pay that workers' comp and different things of that nature. So it's changing the dynamics on how they're interacting with entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, I have a good friend, her name is Jennifer. She's a freelance writer in Pasadena, and she's told me a lot of stories, and not only hers, but some of her friends as well, because they're just not trying to, first of all, break any rules and violations by working with people that are gig or contract workers. So it's changed the dynamic. So now that we want to be entrepreneurs, and you see there's a thriving entrepreneur culture, now even the government is putting a stranglehold in changing the game and the dynamics on that as well too. When is enough going to be enough? I thought this was America that we're living in, the land of opportunity.
Right.
And they're changing that right before our eyes. And my message to everyone is do not allow that to happen. So no different than me, never running for governor or being in a public seat. I'm being fearless, and I'm making a call and activating everyone else to be fearless as well, because the time is warranted right now.
All right. Last question.
Yes, sir.
And I know for a fact we have a lot of people in the room that care about this issue. What say you about the Second Amendment?
I left my gun out there because I didn't want to bring, no, I'm just playing.
Hopefully you didn't leave it out, but hopefully you got it right here.
I support the Second Amendment. I love hunting. I'm from Texas. There's a lot of things that we're going to work on once we get in office. We know that they're putting so many restrictions, so many red tapes on law-abiding citizens, people who are being punished for the mindset that they have on certain criminals. So that is on my agenda in the first 100 days when I become the next governor of California, to amend some of those laws. Absolutely.
Amen. Well, I think it goes without saying, we here in California, we're in a lot of trouble right now. And we definitely were in a time where we need to see a different style of leadership, because the leadership right now is letting us down, seeking his own, and it's just horrible. And there's a lot of people that are really, let's face it, even the suicide rate's going up right now. This is not good for
spousal abuse, everything is going up.
Yeah, alcoholism, it just across the board, this is not good. So I always love to give my guests an opportunity to just leave everybody with a word of encouragement.
Sure.
So what would you say to everybody that's here and everybody that's tuning in online tonight?
Sure. My word would be to first say thank you again for having me today. I truly appreciate it. Anytime I get an opportunity to share and be a part of a group and talk about some of the key issues that we all care about, I go away learning something new, and it gives me more inspiration to do what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But more importantly, I would just go back to what I said earlier. It's important that we stay activated and we stay vigilant. It's important that we become a part of the process even more so. If you know someone that's not registered to vote, make sure that they are registered to vote. Become more aware of the policies that are out there. If you have someone that's on the fence, now you have to be a champion and a bulldog to try to get people to understand what's really going on, because our liberties are being provoked and they are on the cusp of being stripped away from us. And also, I would like to leave you all with understanding that coming up, this is the most important election in California's history. Right? Do we all realize that 4 families have run California for the last 60 years?
Right.
4 families have run California for the last 60 years. Let's be the unicorn. Let's all band together and be that anomaly that they don't believe exists, right? Allow me to lead, allow me to carry your voice so we can get the opportunities that we deserve in the Golden State. And you know what time it is? It's time to think major about the future of California. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Major?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
I'm going to sit back down because I don't think I'm in the camera here. But
Okay.
hey, I just want to let you guys know, normally everybody likes to come up here, take pictures and stuff with our guests. Please feel free to do that. But tonight we're going to have you, if you would, just step out there. There's a backdrop.
Okay.
And that'll give all the people who work on the stage up here, give them a chance to move everything because we got to set it back up for church.
Fantastic.
But thank you so much for coming out. Really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
your
me.
time.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
And I love what you said as far as continuing to engage, and register to vote.
Yeah.
If you haven't registered to vote, you can always register to vote here. And wherever you go to church, make sure you tell your pastor to get people registered to vote, and make sure you tell your pastor to harvest ballots. Harvest ballots at church. Amen? Amen. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Everybody that tuned in online, God bless you. Thank you for coming out. We'll see you next week.